Metro on 1019 WDET FM, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Tia Graham. 3 years ago, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X, sold out shows at the Detroit Opera for the first time in over a decade. Now, the composer behind that success is back in Detroit. Anthony Davis returns this month to present Central Park 5, a gripping opera that tells the true story of the wrongful convictions of the 5 African-American and Latino teenagers in the assault of a white female jogger in Central Park in 1989. It's a case that involved President Donald Trump, who became an outspoken voice for convicting the teens. Anthony Davis won a Pulitzer Prize for this work, and he spoke with WDET's Ryan Patrick Hooper about the politics of bringing an opera like this to the stage and how it feels to be back in Detroit.
Well, it's very rewarding to me because, that's why you do this. You are trying to reach people. You're trying to hopefully connect with people, and it's an honor for me to have people connect with my music and connect with the stories that we're telling. Finding that combination between, with the stories you tell and the music is very important, and something I think about a lot, in terms of how I choose the projects I do, and also because I want to speak to our time and to what's going on in people's lives.
That helps sum up your work right there. You are not afraid of diving into a lot of these big issues. Opera always gets into big emotional storytelling of sort of the roots of storytelling, the roots of our emotion. You do that, but you take it into, I don't want to say topical because these issues are kind of constant, but you bring it into social issues that we face. Talk to me about weaving those things into opera, because we know, right off the bat that, like most art, there's always this diversity issue with opera, and these are topics that sort of challenge that and bring it to the forefront.
Also, it's a way of connecting emotionally too, because the effects of racism, the effects of racial oppression, all that is deeply emotional, deeply part of the fabric of our culture and society. And I hope to create a kind of cathartic experience, in which they identify things that, like what could happen to the Central Park 5 could happen to anyone. And so it's very important that people identify with them, that when they listen to the opera, the way I conceived it, it's almost as if the audience becomes the 5 themselves. For me, it was important to tell the Central Park 5 story because in a way, it's a cautionary tale. As we see now with the deportations, et cetera, what Trump was proposing in 1989 with Central Park 5 was just the beginning of this whole process. And it's something we need to resist, and something we need to stand up to, and something we need to address as artists in order for us to really sustain our democracy in America, and to sustain our freedom and the freedom of expression.
That is the primary issue that I think the arts can help tackle, is stretching out and exercising those empathy muscles for people, which people struggle with because they say, oh, well, that issue's not happening to me, it's happening over here, until it gets to a point when it's on your doorstep. And when we look at Central Park 5, this is a true story, something that did happen. How do you weave that concept and get the audience involved with these characters and how you go about telling this?
What I tried to do is, because the opera starts with them today, they're thinking about what happened to them, and they become those teenagers about to go into Central Park, when they're 15 and 16 years old. And I try to capture their as they look back at the past, the reflective aspect of it. And the irony too is that music was so much a part of that, because 1989, of course, was the year when hip hop really meant mainstream. It's the year that Do the Right Thing opened, Spike Lee's movie. What happened in 1989 was a cultural moment too, in which one could capitalize on the white fear of African-American culture becoming mainstream, particularly hip hop culture at the time. That kind of anxiety that Trump really praised on this kind of anxiety and fear, the resentment of progress of African Americans, et cetera. I think that's the basis for this whole assault on DEI that we see.
This is my world. This is how I live. This is my world. My world. I will make sure people see me here in my world. This is my world. Come into a world.
So when we think of you as a composer, I mean, it's a wild concept, but all the things that we're talking about, I mean, how do you write music that brings this all together and matches the emotion and the anger and the frustration and the reality of the Central Park Five and what they went through?
Some composers in the past have been inspired by love stories, et cetera. I'm inspired by things like this. I'm inspired by the crisis, the collision of ideology and the collision of culture and politics. So for me, witnessing and seeing what happened to the Central Park Five, and imagine what the interrogation would be like. They were interrogated for 36 hours without food or water. So what that would be, how the kind of assault that is, and then also reflecting the response of the parents, what the parents felt. They were minors. They were 15 and 16 years old, and they weren't supported and treated with the respect that they should have had. A lot of the idea of this interrogation without a lawyer, interrogation without allowing them to see their parents. That was all wrong and all deeply, profoundly wrong. So I want the audience to feel what they felt, and I brought that together musically because one of the things that's interesting was having five protagonists in an opera. So I have them sing together with close harmony, like I was thinking of, groups like Take Six or Boys to Men, or the whole tradition of African American voices in harmony, using that, and some of the poignant moments in the opera, they're when they're afraid, when they come together, because they're afraid, because they realize the trouble they're in. So thinking of ways in which we can tell the story and bring people into their emotional world. And in Central Park Five, I thought about the music of 1989 too. I thought about how to use rhythm and speech the way hip hop uses rhythm and speech. I was very interested in and kind of taking some ideas of text setting and words and speech rhythm and exploring that in this opera. I mean, they won't hear overtly hip hop music in this, but the influence is there. Also, the idea of sampling, of using I mean, hip hop always looks to the past with the sampling. For example, like P-Funk, Parliament Funkadelic stuff from earlier time. So they're using thinking about the ways in which music is built on itself, built on its past. And when they go into the park, for example, Central Park Five, I do this music that was inspired by Parliament Funkadelic, that takes us into the park. I think opera can have that range. And opera isn't, some old pale thing. Opera can be something that comes from African American culture. It comes from, Native American culture. It can be the subject of a diverse expression. And so I think there are lots of sources for opera can mine in the future, also to make it relevant to today, make it speak to today.
See, and that that makes sense for opera to have these harmonies come together. It's one of those things where I'm sure we're going to hear musical influences that might seem a little foreign to like opera old heads or traditionalists when you're doing this, but there still are elements that feel classic opera. Is that right?
Oh, sure. One thing is, using these voices, but I don't really think about divisions in music. I don't. I like to think of sometimes the most dangerous thing and most interesting thing is to not accept categories, not accept the divisions of music. So for me, you know, whether it's my jazz influences or when I listen to the vocal harmonies in the piece, I want to explore create something new that is based on all kinds of musical traditions, and that allows me the freedom to explore and experiment with music, and not think about, worry about whether this is classical music or jazz or what category it falls in, because to me, a lot of those categories are racial constructions. A lot of those categories were created to segregate music. It's what to put, originally in a record store, to what bin record stores or records are in, et cetera. I don't really want to accept the segregation that's imposed on the music world, and to embrace the music that create a new music that is built on everything I've experienced.
From what I understand, is this the third time this has been staged?
Yeah, it was staged in Long Beach. We've done it twice in Long Beach and then in Portland.
What is the significance of that for this to come to Detroit Opera, knowing that this is one of the early times to see this? I mean, audiences are going to be seeing this for the first time, and why is Detroit Opera a good place to do that?
Well, they're actually going to see a world premiere because it's the first time they're going to hear the orchestral version of the opera, because it was for chamber forces before. So there's a lot of what they're going to hear is completely new. I had such a great time doing X here when I did X, bringing back when Yuval Sharon and Wayne Brown decided to bring X to Detroit Opera. It was an amazing event, and seeing the Black community, particularly in Detroit, coming to the opera and embracing the opera. I'm excited to see that continue. Also with this story, which I think is so relevant to today and speaks today. And I think Detroit is such a incredible, profound musical history, and I mean, I've had so many friends from Detroit, musical friends from Detroit, that I've played in Detroit in the past too, as a pianist and an improviser. So it's to me always feels like coming home to come to Detroit.
That's composer Anthony Davis. His opera, Central Park 5, opens on May 10th. You can find tickets and multiple performance dates at DetroitOpera.org. And you can hear WDET's Ryan Patrick Cooper on his show In the Groove from noon to 3, Monday through Friday. So it follows the Metro. In news, the Heidelberg Project, an outdoor art installation in Detroit, will celebrate its 39th anniversary this weekend. Local residents are invited to become part of the event by sharing their memories. The celebration takes place on Saturday at Spotlight in Detroit at 11 a.m. Hope to be there. As well, coming up, there are a number of Michiganders who have grown weary of the Trump administration. Some are even scared of an authoritarian takeover. We'll talk with an organizer out of Macomb County who is trying to protect democracy. Stay right there. We'll be right back on the Metro.